welcome back to another edition of the Sovereign Hub. And today, it's been a long time since we've done a last episode, and I'm very excited for finally getting back, finally be able to speak about the Lord and everything that He's done in this last few months and stuff. We also have a special guest today. I'm very, very excited, someone very close to the family. And they have also got some good news that they're going to share with you. So to start off, I want to introduce the one and only, the famous, and such a humble and amazing, lovely lady in my life, Auntie and Louanne. So welcome to the podcast. It's finally good to have you here.
Thank you, Timothy. This has been a long time coming, and I am excited to be here with you this morning.
Yes, I'm very excited to finally have you here. I'm excited for people to hear what you've got to say. I know you got a lot to say on this episode, and a lot about the music, a lot about your journey, and in fact, let's start from there. I want you to kind of talk about your experience, and from the start, when did you start kind of doing music for God, or where was that inspiration come from? What's the history about you? Who is Louanne? Who is Louanne?
Okay, so my full name, Louanne Modeste. I then had an addition, Samson. I was married for a while, and my name actually comes from a root that means enjoyment, and I think I've been that sort of a way growing up, full of life, just loving life, loving laughter. My middle name, my mother always said to me, and I discovered it is in Exodus and in Revelation. It's one of the stones, jacinth, which the high priest had on their robes, and it's one of the stones, the 12 stones mentioned in Revelation for heaven. And so my mother said to me, your name is already there. Yeah. You have to be there. Biblical. And I didn't pay much attention to things until I was a little older, coming into my teenage, and I would own my name and, own certain thing about it. And of course, my parents, my surname, Modeste, means having modesty, being humble, caring about others. It has a sort of Latin root. So all of those things came together. Of course, I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. I have strong Vincentian and Grenadian roots, and other islands. And all of that mixed. And of course, coming from Trinidad, just the diversity, the cultural mix, the music is different, and not just about the carnival. You had a really lovely mix of things growing up. And all of those things, I think, influenced my love for music. But I think one thing, and up to this morning, my mom was reminding me, she always prayed that her children will be in ministry. Yeah. In the fact that we didn't really have a choice growing up. My dad was a pastor. My mom was a teacher. She taught us at home until while my dad moved around the Caribbean. And what was always interesting is that even with that, we had people always staying with us. So I was born and there was a piano there. And she said that, she prayed that her children, especially her firstborn, that's what she keeps saying to me, would be musical and, share the gift. So I think I was about maybe 3 or so, and I used to listen to the people playing who would stay at our house. And I just played a chorus one night by ear. Of course, Sunday morning, I went to music lessons. I stuck with it until about grade 5 or 6, and then I just was like, there are many other interesting things. You're traveling, and I love history, and eventually went on to study that, wanted to teach that. Although part of me at first said I was going to follow in my dad's footsteps and be a minister.
So being a pastor's child, and obviously having that expectation to, obviously walk in that kind of path, but also having a passion for music, and there's carnival, there's so much culture where you're from. So, like, from when obviously you're young, what's that like? Obviously, having that understanding of biblical culture and what how we should live and stuff like that, but then also having that side of where music is a heavy influence in your culture and the stuff that you might have listened to. What was that like? What did you listen to?
I think the beauty of it is that I've always said we grew up in a home where every genre of music was played. Except maybe rock music. And of course, we all listened to something. My father really appreciated different types of music. So he didn't fuss with certain things. And my mom, she was coming from a background where she used to dance and do things in the village. And so we just loved everything. And of course the calypso music, the stories behind it, the things that you learned just listening to a calypso. And as we were growing up, things that you didn't know, from before you were born. You learned about this from these old calypsonians, and you used to like to listen to how they will do the extempo, and all of these things will happen. But of course, you do have to make a balance if you're deciding to be a Christian.
Of course, yeah.
But I did, I had my years when I was singing in the church choir, but I was singing other music.
Yeah.
And I don't think the experience harmed me. I think because my parents were around, and they, my father always knew the things we would listen to. He, when we would be listening to Wham, or we all went off on Boy George and all these things in the 80s, and he could tell us about the musicians and, the sort of things. And he would say certain things, and then years later you're thinking, how did you know that? So we had that balance. And even within the Christian circle, some music that people wouldn't listen to or choose not to listen to because the artist may have been too upbeat or something.
Lyrics.
All of that happened at home. So I think that added to the love for music. And then, as you say, you had to be doing certain things in church.
Yeah.
And you had other pastors' kids that were all musicians. And
would you say, is that how you also learned the piano? Or like obviously you said you learned by ear.
Yes.
So is that the first time like you learned by ear and you started playing and then and in church?
And then of course, yes. So when we started doing exams and stuff, and you can read now, it was expected that you can play the hymns in F major or C major,
Keys.
so you should be able to play now. And then it built up, because what would happen is, we would go to things, and my sister actually sang quite well. And so I would play. And we went through a myriad of instruments. My mother,
So what did you go with? What instruments did you used to play?
But I dabbled with the steel pan for a while. I just don't think I was anything else was for me more than and that's my mom's instrument now. Actually, she's really good with it. She had the trumpet. We had the little quattro things. We had. She did drums. She was in this thing, and so we had a sort of exposure to some, but I don't think any of them stuck. My sister played the recorder. I tried my hand at the guitar.
The guitar it wasn't gonna happen.
Right. So I stuck with the sort of piano, and we were always singing. By default. And then as I grew older, you in different groups. I joined one choir, I joined a community thing, and then went on to college. You're in the college choir, you're in Eastern music, so you're doing different things, different chorales and stuff. And I just love the group thing. And many weekends, they will call on us as Adventist singers to come and sing for other churches or for programs or for weddings and everything. So in my teenage years, it was a nice little way to get some change. And
some change.
Return my tithe and say, oh, thank you, Jesus.
Did you sing and play in a lot of churches? Did you sing and play actually at any point?
I did sing and play at some points.
Because I don't think you see that much like singing and playing nowadays, do you really? It's like
I think the last time I did that was early last year or this year, this year, within the pandemic. I did it for one of my young friends who passed away, for his funeral. And it's something I would more do at home. Very rarely I do it out there, because I want people. I just and I think over the years now I do practice. I think growing up you didn't like to spend hours doing the scales, but I realize it's like with anything in life, if you don't put the work in, you won't get anything. Right. So with my singing, with my playing, with my teaching, you had to put in the work. You have to plan. You have to do things. When I'm doing events, if I'm doing a talk, you just have to do the putting the work. So I say to them, don't give up. And I think for me now, I like to push young people and see them to the definitely. I can testify to that. No, that's amazing. So obviously that's you've got that whole musical history and experience where you come up and brought up in a heavy musical heavy culture and environment. So now coming to this point where we are, people have been calling on your name for a long time to do the music. When would you say that, obviously you've been singing in church and for funerals, different stuff like that for a while, but then what brought you to finally decide,
I'm going to do a project? Because obviously, people are going to find out that you've obviously released a project. And I'll let you talk a bit more about that. But then what was that thing that, made you record and say, boom, I have to do this now?
Right. So I don't think thinking about recording something was, like in the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
But life experiences start to teach you different things. Even starting to sing alone and solo happened by default. So with my not so very bright self, my father think I was in an altered state of consciousness, rest his soul, when I decided to, on the invitation of my boyfriend, come to London. And so what started happening, I came here and then suddenly discovered all these people that knew me as a child, or my father had done their weddings or whatever. And a couple of them, the pastors would say to me, oh, come and go somewhere. I was coming for 6 months. It's 29 years, right? Come and go with me. And sometimes on our way, he would say, oh, you're singing. I'm like, what? So what actually happened, I had to call back my friends in Trinidad and say to them, look, I need song tracks. Yeah. Fortunately, there was one guy here, Selwyn Noel, who would play. And sometimes when we're going around, he would be there. So you had the pianist. And I didn't have a piano or anything. So I opted at the time, at the church I was going, the older gentleman, he said, oh, I hear you play, and one of my friends had said that to me before I was coming. So I decided to help out the church and do what you do, keep the fingers going, as they say. But I was still looking for a group. I love harmonies. I like singing a duet or singing, my sister and I would sing, friends and I always singing together. Very rarely I sang a solo growing up. And that would be sometimes because my dad wanted a particular song and he would say, I want you to sing this song.
Yeah, special request.
Right.
Kind of thing, yeah.
So I would do that. And I knew I started doing it more at college, but still it would always be like a duet or something. Very rarely I would
do the
sing.
solo.
Yeah.
So then from that point, then there would obviously became a demand, just as you started getting called upon to do solo, now to then people want to take your music home and experience it. Personally, because I feel like, well, you've obviously gone through a lot as well. And did that play a hand in the music that you do and you wanting to do that?
It did.
So, yeah.
So three things in leading up to this project. I think, I say my story is full of broken pieces and ugly truths and just God's grace.
Yeah.
And I think what triggers certain songs, because songs have always been a prayer or a hope for me. That's what I turn to. I always turn to the music. So I remember, you go through, I got ill coming into 2000. So about 2 years. I had a fall, drastic fall at work. And I started getting these symptoms. And I was never a person to be sick.
Okay.
The doctor was used to seeing me for a woman's pap smear and your blood pressure, and that was about it.
Yeah.
I used to have horrible monthly pains, but apart from that, I wasn't ill.
Yeah.
So I fell down, and then the next thing I knew, I'm getting these scars, I'm getting this, I'm having pain.
How did you fall down, if you don't know?
But I think it was the enemy. I was coming down the stairs at the school, at the John Loughborough School, and I don't know what I slipped on. I just toppled down to the bottom.
Yeah.
And I remember sort of getting up and just saying, amen, I'm alive, dragged myself to the office, and they dealt with a few bruises. And I sat there for a while, and because I wasn't feeling badly, I didn't feel like anything was broken. I just went on with the day. Maybe
a bit of adrenaline as well, because maybe it was
I continued teaching. I continued doing what I did. And a few days later, my whole body sort of seized. So I went to the doctor and he sent me on to that Chase Farm Hospital. They did some tests. I still have they said I developed a sort of hematoma and I was bruised, but nothing was broken, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And then was these sort of symptoms developed over the next 2 years, and finally they said I was tested for everything from tuberculosis to AIDS under the sun. And I think we were touring Australia, and I was just exhausted all the time. And came back, continued having tests. And then they said, yes, you have systemic and discoid lupus. I had to be greedy. I have two. And that started a different journey. Because what happened, because of the person I am, even though this is happening, once I knew what was happening, I know how to deal with it now. Yeah. But because I tend to be jovial and I don't like to be just down in the dumps, people started to think I was not well.
Okay.
That I was well. She can't be sick. What is she playing? She needs to, so I was having this sort of harassment at work and a sort of bullying here, and people just doubting what is happening. And as time progressed, it became very difficult for my husband. So I'm now getting this difficulty at home. I'm having it at work, and and you just thinking, okay, Lord. And in that, the songs are keeping me going.
And can I say as well, like, obviously in these times, what I think I want to hear as well from you is, how do you honestly get through stuff like that, when, especially when you have that faith in God, especially when you've been singing your whole life, you're in church, you're doing these things that people believe you should be taken care of, that you shouldn't run into these things that a lot of people think. So how is it that what did you think? What's going through your mind?
Well,
it's a lot.
The thing is, you see, experiences before sort of just make you look at God in a certain way. So when we were growing up, I remember that we had about maybe 3 years where every single one of us were in and out of the hospital. There's 5 of us. I have one brother, one sister. And I never forget when my dad really got in a terrible, terrible accident. We thought he was going to die. They had to wire his jaw. And my sister was like, I'm not eating. My dad is not eating. And then over that spate, my father would come out of the hospital. He came out, my brother would be in, because when he was born, he had something wrong with his feet. So he comes out, my sister is in, my dad is in, my mom comes out, I go in, I have to lose my tonsils. And it was like a cycle of things happening. And then you start, as you get older, you start thinking, we survived that.
Yeah.
But for God. Just as we were ready to write an exam, my mom lost her business, we lost our home, we're moving into cousins, and all sorts of things are happening, and you have your moments where you actually argue with God. And I think those are the times when you start to really talk to God. You start to say, okay, so you told me, come, let us reason together. What is this all about? And you still go along life kind of okay, because I say to people, God will go to the depths of hell to save you, And so I wasn't always doing the right thing. And, I was a sort of like, I'm in church, I'm in the choir this morning, I'm doing whatever, or I'm leading a talk, I'm doing whatever I have to do or to organize this event. And of course, when the sun set, I was in the school bazaar, dancing to every calypso there was. But my friends, all my friends knew, Louanne is a good Christian girl. She's not doing anything until after Sabbath, right? And they always saw me as this good girl. And then my friends in college were like, but, Louanne did these things, but she will drink a beer and eat this and do whatever.
Those are two
yes. But because you do that struggle. But in all of that, I would always, I knew every night I wouldn't pass a day without praying, even though I think I wasn't doing something that wrong, we can, make, and in all of it, when all of those things happened, there were always songs that we sang, which a lot of them have come back into this project, So after I got ill, and then, a few years after that, my husband grows up, he leaves the house. I'm there alone. God always put people around you.
So what happened at that point? Like, what if you don't mind talking about that? What happened around the time you get ill, and obviously that's a lot of weight on your shoulders right there, and how, like, people say, and the Bible talks about you putting that weight and stress and worry onto Christ, but like, how did you do that?
Right. So you see what I told you said about stress?
Yeah.
I saw this t-shirt the other day and I was like, yeah, that's true.
I love that.
Because stress is a killer. And I remember I had been back home one year and I had done something with my dad on this stress and teaching of stress. And I was really under it. My eyes were just going red. I remember prior to even getting ill one day, I was in a difficult work situation, and I'm the kind of person, I would speak my mind.
Yeah.
But I think the Lord was teaching me to hush and let him deal with it.
Yeah.
And not always have to backfire, because I was in a position where I couldn't just do that anyway. But I think by the time I got ill, and things started happening at my workplace, I mean, the next thing I was the advocate. I went in, I trained as a union rep, I did some legal stuff, to have that on my back. And then, of course, there goes your spouse goes. And you're just thinking, okay, Lord. But in some of the anger, in some of that, I was still singing. I would still, because that's the only
Why?
thing that would. Sometimes you sing angry songs. I would sing and I would laugh. I would find. I remember one neighbor. We were living in Tottenham at the time, and she would sometimes say to me, "What it is you laughing out at like that in the day?" Because I'm now home. I couldn't move, for almost a year. I couldn't go back to work. And at the time, I just, sometimes it's an advert. Sometimes I'm reading something. Sometimes I'm looking at something.
Yeah.
Find reason to laugh because, the Bible says a merry heart is good for the soul.
Yeah.
And a broken spirit, when you start, it just saps you. It drains you. It's not good for you. And I think when things happen, you really start to read the Bible with an understanding. You start to sing with a different understanding,
different perspective, because you live in it now.
Because you I sing that. But when I kept saying, for a closer walk with God, Lord, I want to walk closer with you. Yeah, I was singing it, I was leading it. But now oh Jesus, please. What is happening? And when the lupus hit, I had so many experiences where I thought I'm going to die. I remember one night I was really like, I understood. I said, Lord, I understand that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I feel pain in my toenail, in my eyelash, everywhere.
Gosh.
And I that night, I remember early when I was going to die, and I called all my family members, and I was like, I will see you all in heaven. This is it. This is it. And I think as I hung up, my husband would call other people, say, pray, pray, pray. Yeah. And I sort of cried through the night. The pain was just horrendous. And I got up the next morning and, they left the house. And, we've always had people living with us. Yeah. So my friend said to me, you okay? I said, because I was like, I'm up,
Yeah.
I'm up. I thought I was dying. I'm up. And I lay on the bed and I sort of looked up in the wardrobe and I was like, what am I dying for? I haven't even worn that hat yet. So I'm not dying. And then while I'm there contemplating, there's still a sort of bit of teary. My sister calls and I said, yeah, morning. She said, oh, I thought you died. I said, no, gosh, because, I was saying, she said, mommy calls you. I said, no, I've just decided it's not today. It's not happening today.
Yeah, wow.
It's not yet. And I've gone through that over and over. And I think, after the whole sequence where you're going through all of this and then you're going through a separation, which of course you all know it was a public thing. Half of the church isn't talking to you, half are talking to you. You having, everybody has their opinion. And even though they're seeing, and I think it was at that time I really understood when Nelson Mandela says, when wise men are silent, fools multiply. And you saw the people who you expected some wisdom and some discernment and some common sense in the situation, And then, of course, when I'm seeing people, leaders in the church not dealing with principle, I take them up on it. So, of course, you get a backlash.
Yeah.
But in that backlash, I could sing.
Yeah.
I could sing, I could smile. And I just had to. So I think around 2005, 6, this is maybe 5 years after I got the diagnosis. Yeah. My husband had left. My friend Sean Mitchell, he's deceased now. And another guy from Tottenham Church, Ian, I think, they said to me, you just need to put your music out. Come down to our studio and whatever. So I did a short project. I called it Triumph.
Okay.
Right.
And what year was this, like, roughly?
It's about 2006, I think. 2005,
okay. And how long after this? Is this in the midst of your illness and in the midst of
this is in the trial. This is just after my ex left and everything, and and the songs were the songs that were holding me. They were all covers, and they were holding me. One was In Christ Alone, Midst of the Rain, Sinner Saved by Grace, and that kind of thing. And they were holding me, and then I would just go back to the hymns. And I think in 2009, my dad died.
Oh gosh!
And of course, the week before his death, we realized that he was deteriorating. So I was in New York with my sister, and we were thinking, should we just fly home? Part of me wished that we did, but we had decided we're not going to pay $1,000 just to go to Trinidad because Obama and they were in the Caribbean at the time. So we left it, and I came back to London the next day, and that was a Tuesday night, a Wednesday, and the Sunday my mom called. She says, you need to get a flight to come to church. I was like, get a flight. The school is opening in the morning. So she's calling me the Sunday, and I'm actually now, I've gone to see one of my mothers because I had an adopted father, Brother Chad. He had died earlier in the January. And the same day I got that news, they said my dad is in hospital.
Okay.
So this was so he died, Dad then died in April. And I remember getting up the Monday morning and my brother just called and he said, Lou, it's not looking good. They had to do something else with Daddy last night. But he had already said the week before when we heard him, he just said, I'm tired, I'm ready to go.
And now it's just one thing after the other and it's just building up.
And I'm just like, okay. So he's gone the Monday morning. When my colleagues come to pick me up, I said, oh, Daddy's gone. And they're looking at me like, okay. So they called the school and said, this is happening. And we send a message out to friends. And I think, I was like, really? Okay, Lord, I've just come back. How am I getting home? Because I have to go home now. You're the first one, everybody, you have to be home. And I never forgot a little miracle God did that morning because I got into school and my colleagues came in and they prayed with me. And one of them said, if you need, I'll buy the ticket for you to go. And I said, mm-mm. And I called the bank. And the Lord had it. A young man answered and he started talking to me. And I said, this is so-and-so and whatever. And then he suddenly said to me, is this Miss Sampson from John Loughborough School?
Oh, wow.
So I said, yes. It seems I taught his cousin. And I taught somebody else that he knew and he was talking about, they always talking about. He said, what can I do for you? So I said to him, my dad has died and he said, oh, Miss Sampson, don't worry about it. We'll just extend your overdraft and you can get your ticket and you can. Like, okay, so I come out of the room like, okay, hallelujah.
Yeah. Provided just
getting to go. And, my aunts and they would always, come back into the picture and sort you out. But okay, I'm off. No, because I just come from America and, of course, one shopped a lot. So,
okay.
So then it was to get the ticket.
Yeah.
And again, this was God in his wisdom. The morning I am booked for the Wednesday morning now because in Trinidad, you don't keep a body. So they bury Daddy the next Monday.
Oh, straight.
And we're just having to plan everything do everything. So as soon as he died, my sister was on a plane and she was home. My brother lives there, so it was fine. And I text Marvin, I think, and I said, I'm going in the morning. And it worked out that his dad and another friend of ours were on the same flight.
Okay.
So it actually just made the whole thing easier. Yeah. Just going. And at the funeral, they started singing some songs that my dad used to sing all the time. I was in a mess.
It's going to hit.
But then I had to stand up and sing.
Afterwards?
I had to sing for the funeral.
Wow.
And I remember getting up and just before 2 or 3 items before I would sing, they sang one of the hymns. And the gentleman who was my old college professor and choir director, you could have almost heard my dad's voice. The whole church is weeping and bawling. They do 2 things and now I have to get up to sing. The song. Well, my sister did the eulogy first and we were all sort of holding her and I have to get up to sing. And at this point, the whole church is bawling. My little niece, she doesn't know what is going on.
And so you're just holding it together.
My sister-in-law, my aunts, everybody, people at the front. So I just looked up. And as I looked forward, I saw my own mother, Sister Bufong, just sort of, and another friend of mine. It's like, I said, okay. And I got through, and this woman said to me, how did you sing for your father? And I said to her, 2 days before, the song I was going to sing, I couldn't sing it. I was weeping. So I actually said to my other friend, this is the song you will sing, and I will sing this one. And it has become that kind of staple. It was He Will Carry You. And so that set me off thinking, some of the hymns. And I said, I need to sing those hymns.
Okay. And now it's coming.
So what I did now, I had and that very time in America, that Easter, I had brought this old songbook, with all these old hymns. And so I called up my conductor and I said, he had done some song tracks for me before. And I said, can you do a couple of tracks for these songs? And I sent him about 3 or 4. I can't even remember how many. So
to send him to remake them?
To do the song track.
Okay, to do the soundtrack,
right? So, and I said, I'm thinking of it in this style, or I wanted that style.
What style did you say to him that you wanted
some it were jazzy because I like
jazzy,
that.
Okay, I love it, and so you wanted to kind of be more of your expression of how you want the song to be, not just
not just because I liked it, but what it had meant to me. And So he did that. And then a couple of the songs came up. And of course, my conductor is overly busy, the most busy person. So I had also been playing around again with writing stuff.
Okay.
Or putting music to stuff. So my mom has about 3 poems, and I really need to put the music to the other 2. Yeah. But I had done one. So I'm talking with one of my students who's now come back to sort of work. He did music and everything. And I'm saying, listen, I need this. And I literally just sing it to him and record it on, those days of your old little cassette thing.
Yeah.
So I recorded it and I sent it to him and I said, do something for me. All right.
Okay.
And I came up and then a couple of the hymns came to me and I don't know, the Spirit just said to me, call. And I think what happened, how did I end up calling? So I had Ken Burton, I had Leon Barclay.
Okay.
And there was a program that Chiswick Gospel Choir did at the church. And I said, those tracks are fantastic, And Julian said, oh, my brother did it. I said, what? Because I had gone to school with her brother and stuff. So I said, I need to be in touch with him.
So you reached out to him as well?
And I reached out to him. I sent him 3 songs. Okay. And I just said, this is what I have in mind. And I tell you, when those arrangements came back,
it was another
It was
story.
Just out of this world.
Okay.
So and then I had them there sitting.
How long? So where are we now? Because obviously...
So this is my dad has died 2009. This is coming into 2010 now.
2010, okay.
Right, and I'm putting these songs because I want to sing these songs, just sing them.
Yeah.
So the different arrangements. And I started doing that. And then coming into about 2012, one of my friends and I talking, I'm in America, she said, her husband's like, so when you're doing a CD, man, you need to... It's like, So they're talking around, and then I go, and so something I'm saying to my aunt and another friend, and she's saying, but yeah, you need to do another one. You need to do...
And just putting it off.
Right.
Why are you putting it off?
But though? I don't know. I don't know if... I I know I did the first project, and I was like, yeah, I should.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you want to, and then you're not feeling. And I think because the lupus had really affected my lungs.
Okay. So
and sometimes the breathing and the thing, and I'm like...
Yeah.
This is not going to work. And sometimes you lose your confidence a bit, So people, when I said to somebody, I don't feel I could. I was saying to one of my very close friends, she said, what nonsense you're talking about, So I said, okay. So I started, and I think about 2012 or coming into 13, I actually went into a studio. I said, yeah.
Okay. So
yes, my friend, this guy who was doing some work, he said, oh, I do this stuff with this guy next door and you can come down. So I went. The environment wasn't the best, but I did some recordings. And then I thought, okay, and I can't remember if I was talking to your dad, how it happened, but it came up and I came to you guys with this thing.
So, is this with the intention to build this whole project that you want to release, or is it just to record a few songs?
But I think it was like, it might be a little project.
Okay.
Again, like the last one, and so people can hear the music, and these are the songs that I really like. And so where it would go, I wasn't thinking about it at that time.
Yeah, so just literally.
And then that is happening, and then the next thing now, we're all losing our jobs, we're being made redundant. I am doing supply teaching way up in the bush in Braintree, and I'm just like, this is a lot. So that was not my mind, In between all of that, of course, I'm still singing off and on.
Yeah.
And we're coming down to points where my health is deteriorating.
Yeah. So another challenge, another barrier.
And then you're not work. You're told you can't work.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, but people have my condition. They have no limbs and they're doing this. And I remember my GP, I always say this about my GP just to me when I was moaning about it. You're a woman of faith. You'll be fine. And I remember, there were different songs that came into my head, and I thought one day I need to do an arrangement of that song called My Shepherd Will Supply My Need. Okay. And then I got home, and I just went to the piano later in the day, and I started playing My Jesus As Thou Wilt. And I had the song track, I think, by that time.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I will sing this. I'll sing this for something, And you just let it sing. But then... Again, as I said, I think I came to you, we talked, we listened to the things, and your uncle started looking at how we can make this work. And then... Yeah,
so for those of you who don't know, obviously, myself and also my uncle, David Smart, do music production, and we've studied that for a while. And Auntie Louanne, as we call her, came and, decided, all right, she wants to do this project and finally make it happen. And my uncle came to me and said, you know, all right, cool, let's do this, and let's do this properly, and let's make this something that is, you know, more than what I think you expected it to be. And so obviously now we're here, 2021, and
after a long process.
and
then in the pandemic.
And through the pandemic as well.
But I think once we started, and I used to say to Mom, I praise God for my young people like you, and the vision, you know, and you reignited, okay, this is your mindset now, you're going to do this, just get it done, you know. But of course, when we started talking first, it was like, okay, where are we forgetting the funding? So I was sort of like, we put it on hold, we're going to come back to it. And I think last year, and I was sharing this with the church, you know, one of the young ladies' daughters at church, we went to something and she just said to me out of the blue, Auntie, when are you doing a CD? And she said it with such vehemence, you know, so you need to get this done. I was like, well, pray for Auntie, please, pray. I said, let's see what will happen by the end of the year. And I always say God has a way of hearing these conversations that you're not even paying mind to. And I think I spoke with you guys and said we will see what can happen before the year. And then COVID comes, everybody shut down. And in the middle, I think it was August or something, I get this phone call saying, there's funding available to do a project. You need to do this, you need to follow this process and so forth and see. And I was like, oh.
Is that from a church
From a church perspective, you know. So this person called me and said that. And I said, oh, okay.
No excuse.
Right? So I did that. And then, of course, we started to rejoice. Here it's coming because this is, you know, really a costly venture. And we started the work.
Wow.
You know, and then what happened? We had the lockdown because I remember just before we had the second lock. So we started about October. November.
There was 2 different phases, kind of big phases, or 3.
And then we had the lockdown, and then, you know, I remember when I'm coming back in, it's when my friend's daughter isn't well, so I'm caring for her, and we started the work at the house with all the leaks that I had, and I'm like, oh Jesus, how am I going to do this? And I think what I rejoiced most is that God kept me well.
I was going to say that as well, actually, because considering the fact that not only has this project kind of been brewing for many years, but on top of that, when you're kind of getting closer to the end, things are still coming on top of you. The barriers are still there to kind of slow you down or keep you from making this happen. Yeah,
but I think there's this text that I love in Zephaniah where the Lord says, you know, I rejoice over you with singing. The Lord God is in your midst. He's mighty to bless, and he rejoices. So I always think, you know, God is singing over me. He's smiling with me. He's laughing with me. And, you know, when somebody, I remember when people were in and out, and one of my cousins like, girl, remember you're vulnerable, because of course I was shielding.
Oh, yeah, of
right?
course. Yeah,
and you're vulnerable and you sing and do. I said, listen, Psalms 8 say I will lie down in my bed. Psalms 4 verse 8, you know, I will lie in my bed and sleep in safety.
Yeah, that's what
I have to claim it. I said, and I have to be sensible. Yeah. You know, I was keeping all the things that I keep to build my immune system. And I said to people, you know, all the routines people were getting into, I said, that's my life. I'm in the hospital all the time. Once I come home, it's wash those hands, change your clothes,
that's
put them in the machine.
I feel like a lot of us did that from that standard right? stuff, innit?
That was what I did. Yeah. And so it was coming to come, and I had to thank God. You know, I had friends who really stepped in, and they will, you know, do what I needed to do at the house, look over this young lady so I can get out and get the stuff done. And even when we finally got it done, I was still self-critical. You know, you remember?
Yeah, of course. Like, we're always going to be. I mean, everyone. It always goes through that thing where they're like, "Oh, I want to redo this and stuff," and we still did. Obviously, we want to make it the best, so we still re-recorded and fixed what we wanted to fix and what you thought needed to change, and finally made it to a point where now you have the funding, the project is almost done. And how are you feeling? Because I think at this point now, or closer to the end, the house situation is a bit better. Yeah, I know that the person who was looking after was able to like.
Yeah, she's returned home and she's well, and you know, other friends, you know, and as you know, my house always has somebody, so that was nothing new. Just to stretch out your hand and make sure somebody has a place. You know, they're staying here. Young students come over. They're here. You know, that kind of.
Can
thing.
I say as well? You know, this is what I just realized is that the fact that I strongly believe that. The fact what you just said is so important. The way that you spoke about just you helping people and giving that helping hand all the time. Someone's always at your house, as you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is why God's promises, it comes back. It doesn't return void, right? So you received that yourself when you needed funding. That was provided. When you needed a studio, that was provided. When you needed a producer, when you needed, to distribute the CDs and get offers and stuff like that. It all happened because naturally, the way that you live according to the Bible, you stuck to that. So then it returned back to you, and that's amazing.
I think the thing was not to doubt. So even as you were doing the stuff, and your uncle would say, "We need this, we need that." God just put the right person to get the right person to print the CDs. I had our dear John, coming on to do. We were able to use one church, and
even video production, everything was sorted out. Yeah,
and it just all fell into place. And I keep saying, well, God bless me with the best tribe, around me, and I am really, I just have to rejoice about it. And then, of course, it came. When it finally came, and I think what I did, I know some of my friends were like, "You didn't tell us." I couldn't. God just said, you're doing this, and I spoke to the people who were in the circle doing the stuff in the background, and I said to specific friends, because they had always been pushing me to do it. I said, pray about this. It's going to come. So it's like and a group of us who are very close, about 12 of us. So they suddenly saw the link. They're like, what?
And shocked. Yeah. So
but what is good is that I have those people that are really happy for me and really push me, and before I can finish speak, they're like, "This is my address. Send me. What is the cost?"
Ready to help. Ready to serve.
And up to yesterday, one lady just called and she said, I see it's out now. Send me 5 copies or whatever. And so I know God is going to do what He has to do.
Absolutely.
With it. And I just want people to hear the words, and not so much the voice, but hear the words.
The voice. In fact, so we are now finally here.
Yeah.
All praises. I mean, I think it was important that people heard where it came from, what is behind this whole project, and now we're here, 2021, and finally, Auntie Louanne has released the project. You have released this project, and what is the project? Talk to us about what can we expect from the project?
So,
what should people be looking forward to?
Yeah, so it's called Dear Lord. This is based on a poem my mom had called At Dawn, and it's like a prayer to God, where she's thanking God for. And so I had put the music to that and felt that needs to be heard, because you want God to, one of the things I talk is about check the mandarins of my mind, set my sights to things above.
Yes.
And I think in the time that we are in, coming out of this, a lot of people couldn't cope with the lockdown story. And I remember one day, one lady said to me, "How it is you seem to just be cool and having fun?" So I said, lockdown has been my life for 20-something years. You're in the hospital, you're out the hospital, you're losing your hair, you're having shingles, you have everything.
All these problems and challenges.
You're locked down.
Literally.
And when and I think this really, the seed for this really came stronger in 2016 to 2017, because 2016 I had like 4 or 5 general anesthetics in hospital for 6 to 7 weeks. I had a lockdown birthday, I called it, in 2016. 2017, I'm getting ready to go for a wedding, and I'm back in hospital. Again, I'm dying now. And my friends were leaving the hospital. My adopted son said people are just crying when he sees them, because it doesn't look like Louanne is going to make it. But I have, in all of the battling there, I just will turn in the night and said, "I will not die, but live to proclaim the name of the Lord." And then, and then I find something to laugh about. And so I just said, okay, it's going to happen. And the songs, and there are loads and loads of songs, but most of them are those tracks that my friends had done.
Okay, so there's tracks that you recorded way back in, 2006 from there?
Well, some of the songs, So some of those, 2000... No, this was about 2012.
2012, So a lot of those are in this project.
Yeah, so some of those are the tracks that I got my friends to do, particularly the hymns.
Yeah.
And as I said, they resonated, particularly after my dad passed, and I felt that I needed to share those. And then others are covers that really have been in my life. The Dallas Home cover, Righteous Never Forsaken, based on Psalms 37:25. I think in my own life, with everything that I've gone through, Even these years of not being in full employment, God has still put me in places where I can, I volunteer still in schools. I chair, some CICs and do local trustee things for nonprofits. So all of the, God's blessed my life, but you don't know. You're thinking, how am I going to manage?
Yeah.
It's a lot. And this faith journey, which I call, forwarding all issues to heaven. I had to just look back and I said, but I've not been homeless. I'm not hungry. Never without clothes. I'm not forsaken.
Yeah.
And even when others forsake you, God has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you.
And that's just, that's what I feel like, from obviously hearing some of it, obviously being a part of the process, every song is a stage of your life at some point, and speaks about what you've been through, especially the way you sing it. That's why we have to listen to the voice as well. But you know what I mean? Like, even the way that you express your lyrics, the way you express yourself, and finally, it's on a project that people can take home and listen. Would you say that people can take it home and listen to your story?
Yeah. And I think those who have been acquainted with some things in my life could almost tell what that song relates to, or what it had the meaning, And it wasn't just also about me. Sometimes with some of my friends' stories, you think they're going through this, and you may send a song, and just listen to that, to lift you. So, it is the hope that in all of it, people just get a blessing. People find Jesus.
Absolutely.
People feel that they can, talk to God, and feel blessed by it. And I think it's more than just it was nice. It was a blessing. I want people to be able to resonate and feel hope. Have that kind of hope. That it's especially in this time,
definitely,
because part of the thing was I one of my high school friends was encouraging me, which she encourages me to write. A lot of people have been doing that, and I've been writing, but when she said to me, how is your book coming, I just said to her, well, actually, it's the book in the form of a CD.
Yes.
She was like, she literally called me. She was like, what? And I said, I think
That's
this
beautiful.
is the music now is what has really kept me. The story will be there. I think I have to say, like that movie star who passed recently, C.C. Tyson, said, when I have something to say, I'll write it.
Yeah, I love that.
I have a lot to say.
And so it's your book in the form. Obviously.
Yeah, I think so.
And how many chapters do we have to listen to?
13.
13 beautiful chapters of your life.
Yeah,
and what you've gone
chapters.
through. Yeah.
And each of them, have special meaning to me. And I just thank God, that it came through. It was for him, one of my songs that I like, which is not there, but he'll do it again. And he will do it in his time, in his way. And he does supply your need. So
absolutely.
And I had to just say, every night when my mom and I pray, she's like, yes, Lord, I'm remembering Timothy and David and Noel and John and everybody who has been just Paul and all the people who just came in at the right time.
And I think as well, we have to acknowledge, as much as you're acknowledging the people who have helped you in the process, I honestly believe that it's only been this way because of the amount you've poured out into other people. You've poured out so much. It's only right that the Lord said, I'm going to return it to you. And not just return it to you anyhow, to the degree and the effort and the investment that you've invested in other people. So you've got the best people, the good quality and good production and good recording. So I feel like it then elevates, and even the quality of the project speaks heights about who you are and how you invest into people. And so where can we now find it? Because now we're here, we finally made it, and we've got the project out. So dear Lord, where can we find that?
It's streaming on all the digital platforms, I was told. It was funny. I shared the link with some of my neighbors who I have, who know that I sing. And all of a sudden, 10 o'clock in the night, one neighbor calls me and says, I'm listening to this thing on Apple Music. I never knew you sang souls like this. I know you sing. And, and he was all excited. And I said, praise the Lord, because I really wanted to impact, not just people who say they know Christ, but people who really want to have a relationship with Christ. And so it's streaming on the platforms.
So we type in Dear Lord to find it on, is it,
I think it's Dear Lord is the title of the album. So I know it's on Spotify and Apple Tunes, and I think
what's your website as well?
And my website is LouanneSings.com.
LouanneSings.com.
Right, so they can see the other links there. They can email me on the link to say they want to order.
Fantastic.
So for those in England, it is £12 including posting and packaging. Some people know to find my house, so they will come and get it.
For sure. Okay, perfect.
Get those for £10. And they're working on I think through CD Baby you can get some of the distribution in America.
Fantastic.
And other platforms. So
brilliant.
The
and
physical one is there, and the digital platforms are there.
Perfect. So and people can get the physical and digital.
The YouTube channel is there, so we need everybody to subscribe to the channel.
So, and is the channel Louanne Sings?
Louanne Sings, yeah.
Louanne Sings. So YouTube channel Louanne Sings. We've got the website LouanneSings.com. And all the information is also going to be in the description below. So if you're please check it out. This is a story. This is a book. This is a life story told in the form of music. And to really take you through that, please listen, please subscribe, please support, and go through that journey. She's literally taken the whole story, packaged it up for you to experience yourself.
Yeah, I just want to leave something with you.
Yeah, for sure. Please give us a word to finish it out.
In the chaos sometimes, and the chaos the house was in, I was finding things that I hadn't found, and this was something my dad had written years ago and left with us. And it says, rules for daily living. Begin the day with God. Kneel down to Him in prayer. Lift up thy heart to His abode and seek His love to share. Open the book of God and read a portion there, that it may hallow all thy thoughts and see you through the day. Go through the day with God, whatever thy work may be. Where'er thou art, at home or abroad, He still is near to thee. Converse in mind with God, thy spirit heavenward raise. Acknowledge every good bestowed, and offer grateful praise. Conclude the day with God, thy sins to Him confess. Trust in the Lord's atoning blood, and plead His righteousness. Lay down at night with God, who gives His servant sleep. And when you tread the rate of death, He will thee guard and keep.
All praises.
Right.
That's
so
beautiful.
this just encourages me. I had to walk with the paper to read it. But begin your day, go through the day with God, end the day with God. And you sometimes we feel it's hard because of what you're going through. But I think when Paul says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that, what I learned to do now is, I keep saying this, my latest thing is I'm counting the blessings, not the wrinkles. But, my mom and my gran used to say, the sky is, the night is dark, but find the stars. In the darkness, find the stars. In the thunderstorms, look for the rainbow. Look for light and look for love. Look for something good. Always have the eyes to see good for people. And there's a thing that when you're in your darkest moments, I think that is when my mom would always say that's when you have to praise and pray the loudest, and let the enemy know you're not afraid of the dark.
I love that.
So I have thanked God that, people have been there in my life. Sometimes when it comes down to it and you're alone, it's just the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, and the angelic host. I tell people, that's what keeps you going. And even in little things, you start seeing God in those little things, and then He manifests the big things.
All praises. I mean, we can't close it out better than that. I mean, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. It's been very, very special.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you here and to finally have the life of Louanne translated for us into music, and now we can listen to it. So everyone, please support the family. And listen, thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Please, if you want to get more, we're going to be doing more and more podcasts and having more amazing people like Auntie Louanne as well. And we'll just continue to basically talk to people about the reality of how God actually lives in your life, how to live out in faith, and how to experience the Bible and not just sing and not just talk about it, but what it really means to people like yourself. So I appreciate you for coming on again, and everyone have a blessed day, and we'll see you soon. Blessings.
God bless. Strength